Hi, my name is Jim Digby. I work at Showmakers, Inc. You're listening to the business side of music.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
In the studio with us today here in Nashville, Tennessee, we actually have two guests. Alex Cushing, who is the president of Hand Drawn Records out of Texas. Welcome to the show. He's kind of the surprise guest today that we hadn't originally planned on. We also have Dustin Blocker, who his bio I have, and I'm going to read. After spending 17 years as the lead singer of the rock band Exit 380, which released 4 full-length albums, numerous EPs, and various compilations. He co-founded the Texas-based independent record label Hand Drawn Records, which Alex is the president of.
Correct.
Spending several years building the community of artists through live events and regional record releases, Blocker and his business partner Alex launched the vinyl record manufacturing arm of the business, Hand Drawn Pressing, in December 2014, with the newest of vinyl record presses on the planet in over 34 years in January 2017. That in itself could be its own story. In 2019, Blocker, along with several other company leaders throughout the vinyl record supply chain, launched the trade organization that we're going to talk about today, Vinyl Record Manufacturers Association, also known as the VRMA, whose membership includes vinyl record pressing plants, PVC compounders. I have no idea what that is. You guys
we'll talk about it.
Yeah, please. Cutting engineers, electroplating houses. That in itself sounds like it could hurt. Recording studios, brokers, printers, and record labels. Welcome to the show, gentlemen.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having us. It's awesome.
Good to have you here. We like a lot of people in the studio. It's fun that way. I'm going to start with you, Dustin. You were basically a rock singer in a band.
That's it.
And you don't hear a lot of times of them metamorphosizing into something that you guys have created, which is the VRMA, along with your record label and pressing facility. How did you get started in the business?
Yeah, so actually started in college in Denton. So I went to University of North Texas. Literally had a buddy playing guitar, and I was the singer. Right?
So we don't say go Longhorns here, right?
No.
Yeah.
UNT, it's well, it used to be the Eagles, and now it's the Mean Green, named after the one player that ever made it from North Texas, I guess, Mean Joe Green.
Joe Green, yeah.
But just had a buddy, and he played guitar, and he would play cover songs or whatever, and I would sing it on the couch in the little house that we lived in at the time. And people come in and go, hey, you can sing. Maybe there's a bar down the street. Let's go do that. And it was literally that, kind of basic to begin with. And we slowly kind of added to the band. And we ended up touring for 17 years. And like you said earlier in the bio, recording and doing all types of things. And then the jump from, being a rock singer to business, I actually blame my wife. Right. So we've been together 20 some odd years. She goes, you got to get off the couch. You can't just sleep on the couch all day at somebody else's place. You got to try to go get a real job. So that kind of turned into what happened today.
You became an entrepreneur.
Yeah. It's all her fault. Yeah.
Well, I think he's kind of downplaying it because I think anybody that knows anybody in a band, there's usually one person that's driving everything, right? Dragging everybody else along with them on their vision. And if you're the creative that's writing the songs as well, you have that kind of deep of passion. But so Dustin was that guy in Exit 380 anyway. So in essence, he was an entrepreneur even back then trying to make that band happen. So it's not that big of a stretch, really.
When we talk about record companies, though, that's, the standing joke has always been, how do you make $5 million in the music business? You start with $10 million. And the record business really kind of fits into that paradigm.
Absolutely, yeah. So in 2011, kind of on the what I was saying a little bit earlier about trying to get a little bit serious about something beyond just performing live out at shows or traveling around. That's where the record label kind of started. So Hand Drawn Records, it was a collaboration of multiple artists that were in the area of North Texas. I had certain gifts, as Alex alluded to, doing promotion, show posters, booking shows, things of that nature. And it was really just a kind of a collective to begin with of like-minded artists working together and just trading services. And that was 2011. And that kind of, you're talking about, it's funny, I said it a different way. When Alex approached me, he said, "Hey, you're in the music business." I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Is there any money in it?" I go, "No, but there's going to be in vinyl records in a few years." And that literally started the conversation to kind of get to the crazy track that we put ourselves on today. But it just started from a passion of performing, writing music, performing live, trying to figure out the crazy jigsaw puzzle that is trying to make it in the music business. And then as a lot of people, that are at least my age now, that are still somehow in music, you kind of find a way, right? So you're trying to solve problems, you're trying to figure out what it can mean. And the label was the first iteration of that. And as we got really serious in the pressing side, the pressing has taken, the lion's share of all the activity. And the label kind of stays dormant over on the side. And someday, we'll go back and revamp that sucker too. For now, it's just been, very serious for the last few years, all about vinyl.
Coming from a record label background myself, at one point I remember the conversation that I would have with the general manager, vinyl is dead.
Yep.
Now we're doing CDs.
Right.
Cassettes had gone away.
Right.
And then about 2000, maybe 2001, CDs really started to taper off. What I find interesting is that vinyl not only had a resurgence, but has really seemed to sustain itself, especially for the independent artist.
Yeah, it's been a 17-year growth trajectory of sometimes up in 30+% per year growth. So yes, for 17 years it's grown and grown. The last 2 years it's actually outsold the CD, and last year it started beating the digital download in sales. So what everybody's been forecasting, what it really looks like is going to happen, you're going to have streaming and you're going to have vinyl. So it's the dominant physical format for sure. And really the more streaming that occurs, people then want something physically they can tie to. And we talk about all the time, like, what is it? You can get a T-shirt at the T-shirt booth and maybe a CD if you still had a CD player in your car, which is few and far between now. And so vinyl really lives as that kind of physical manifestation of what the artist, puts out there.
Let's jump forward to the VRMA, which is the Vinyl Record Manufacturers Association. What was the nucleus to create that entity?
Yeah, it actually came out of much to what Dustin was talking about, how he started Hand Drawn Records, which was a communal idea of bringing different talents together. As we were finding our way in the vinyl record manufacturing side of things, meeting up with a few of the long-term legacy plants that existed, but being one of the first of sort of the new generation of plants, really just in the dark, reaching for ideas and trying to figure out how to do it. We went to a couple different conferences, the few that still remained around the physical media side of the business, but nobody really had the answers, and we're not really having the conversations that we needed to have, specifically around vinyl manufacturing and the whole supply chain of vinyl. And that was really the sort of nucleus or the aha moment is, what if we were to be able to pull together all the people that are in that supply chain specifically? Most of the things that were being talked about were a lot of marketing ideas, a lot of sales ideas, but not really around the supply chain. And it is a deep supply chain from, you had listed all the people that are involved in VRMA now, from cutting engineers to material manufacturers to the pressing plants. So it is a pretty deep bench of people that make this, $30 record appear, which is pretty amazing. And so, sorry, it just came from, that same, taking that demand plus Dustin's really foundational idea of building consensus and building groups.
How difficult was it to bring all of those entities together and get them on the same table?
Actually, it was a lot simpler than you might imagine. So it was very organic. The Making Vinyl conference in Hollywood in 2019, right before all the COVID stuff hit, what happened is at the conference, as Alex alluded to, where people are on stage talking about great ideas, but a lot of things that we needed as the meat and potatoes of making records daily weren't being addressed. And that was not really a knock on the conference. It was just a function of that was different. It had different function than what we needed as manufacturers and as a supply chain manufacturers. So what we found was that in the back of the room, the conversations were what we needed. Right, we were connecting on these levels of things that we needed to be talking about daily, and then that evening we literally went to the beach out in California, and we were walking down the beach, and everybody was kind of talking about certain issues they had or wins that they had or whatever, and they were all very similar. It was not me as a plant has a different issue than the management group, than as the PVC supplier. We all had very similar issues. And so we took that group of people that were walking on the beach and we started an email thread and said, hey, let's talk about this more in depth. That was October. And by, I think it was the end of November or maybe December week 1, we had our first meeting, and it was off of an email thread saying, hey, who wants to meet up and really try to talk about this? And we met in Nashville, welcome to 1979. And I believe we had almost 40 different companies, just that first meeting out of the blue within, a 4 or 5 week period that wanted to come to the table and really discuss it in depth.
And that was just an exploratory meeting of, do we even want to put a group together?
Yeah.
And obviously we got a lot of, let's do this, and then got COVIDed. So I put it on the sideline for a couple of years, but.
So let me ask you this. Why create such an entity such as the VRMA?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different important reasons. One is there needs to be a place. It is a very bespoke and very craft skill to make these records. I think we all came from the time that, if you remember records prior, it was just such mass production, and it just seemed that it was easy to make these things. And then you had CDs, and the real purpose of CDs was it took all of the difficult, crazy things out of making vinyl out of the supply chain. But they didn't sound right, they don't feel right, they don't tell the same message. So if you want to go back to that, it then puts all of those crazy, weird, difficult things back in play. And we need a place for everybody to share those ideas, one. And then two is a place to create some standardization. Back when it was the first run through with vinyl, there was really 2 or 3 or 4, companies that owned the whole supply chain. It was completely vertically integrated into the big major labels. So creating, the baseline and standardization was easy for them. 3 of them decided, and so it went. Now that it's, has a lot of different voices and different frames, and we needed a place to communicate that. How do we create some standardization, some commonality, not only for us as an industry, not only for our customer, who is the labels and the artists, but the end consumer, so that there's a good sense of what I'm getting is valuable. It is what I expect it to be, and there's some commonality through all of that.
We're going to take a break, get a word in for a couple of our sponsors, and when we come back, we're going to have some more conversation with Alex Cushing and Dustin Blocker.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Since 1963, Korg has been creating new experiences in music and performance. That is what drove the creation of some of Korg's most legendary products, such as the Poly 6, the M1, the Electribe, the Triton, the Minilog, the Kronos, Wave State, Op 6, and most recently the Nautilus, which is what we have here in our studio. Korg is dedicated to creating new, innovative, and uncompromising instruments which maintain the highest quality to inspire music makers, past, present, and future. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products and start creating new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics, all written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message. Thanks.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
Back in the studio here with Dustin Blocker, who's sitting across the podcast table, and Alex Cushing, who is rubbing elbows with me. Gentlemen, welcome back. The vinyl record business, I mentioned earlier that, we went from vinyl to cassette to CD to the download aspect of it. In recent years, and I had this conversation with a producer a few days ago, in that the artists these days have really almost become the beer salesman. They go play at a venue, and the venue hopes that it's an enjoyable enough show that they'll sell beer. My question to you is, with merchandise being what it is now, are we seeing that change, that vinyl records are starting to fit into that merchandise world in a nice little package?
Yeah, absolutely. So vinyl records, really, we have this conversation all the time with the artists that come into our plant in Dallas and pick up the records. A large majority of the records that we make are for tour. Now, that said, the larger volume ones go to the distro centers, which then go out to maybe the Targets, Walmarts, and independent record stores. But then there's typically a variant that goes only just for the tour support as well. So the smaller artists that are making 300 records, maybe 500 records, nearly all of it is going in their van or in the back of their truck, and they're going to sell them for the next year or two. But then even on the larger runs, 10,000, 20,000 unit runs, they're still putting aside another 2,000 of them just go to tour. The black variant's only for tour, and then these crazy color variants are for independent retail, and then they have some for their online merch store, and then they have some for the Walmarts of the world, et cetera. So yeah, the tour aspect of it, or ways to really make money off of your music, it's the only way to make money off of your music in today's landscape besides playing a live show.
When we look at the touring aspect of it, because it's become so expensive to tour, and that $25 or $30 vinyl record that they can put on the merch table, are they moving enough of that component to make it worthwhile for them on the road?
Yeah. So, typically, and I can speak for our plant, let's say, $5 for a finished good is a typical price, up to maybe on the smaller runs, maybe about $8. And you just said that they're selling for 25 or 30, and there's no middleman, right? So they're taking it, and the only middleman is the person that they pay to be at that merch table.
Right.
Now, that said, I buy a lot of shirts for our company, and they're typically $5 to $8 to print a T-shirt. The only difference being I can make them in smaller quantities, of course, than I can a vinyl record. But that's really the only two components. You have shirts, trucker hats, koozies you're not going to make much off of, and then you have your vinyl record at the merch table, and that's what it's largely made up of. CDs, digital download cards, USB ports. Typically, you're not going to find them at today's merch table or at a very small portion of what they're able to sell live.
I would only add that it's probably the only single thing that actually enhances and continues to push forward the connection with the artist and the fan, and also tell the story of the band and keep it going. You sell T-shirts, and maybe you remember it when you pull out that T-shirt, but every time somebody drops that record on the turntable, or they look at it on the shelf, is they're having an interaction with the band. Mm-hmm. And you have a very large 13.5 by 13.5 surface to tell your story.
Right.
So there's really nothing that can really duplicate the long-term impact or the connection that it keeps with the fan, between the fan and the artist.
That is so interesting you bring that up, because in one of my many discussions with different people in the industry, I'm an analog guy in a digital world. And in that analog guy that's inside of me, I miss the liner notes. I miss all the album credits. I wanted to see who played on it, where it was recorded at, when it was recorded. And you lost that world in the digital environment. It went away. And so CDs, thank goodness, did that. And vinyl is doing that these days. I agree. I think it provides that intimate moment with the listener that they're not going to get in any other way. In addition to, you're not dealing with compression.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and credits, you mentioned this. I've been to quite a few conferences that are about studio engineers, mastering engineers, and they'll sometimes have some kind of, folks that were either have produced X amount of albums in the past, especially here in Nashville. Credits are wildly important. And back in the day, you could flip over the vinyl jack and look, okay, here's who produced this, here's who the engineer was. And that's how these folks got work. Now, I'm preaching to the choir if you live in Nashville and you hear this, but people outside of Nashville don't even know that that's a thing. They're just like, I don't know. But guys that live in the studio, I mean, that is how they get their work, is by producing or engineering records. And so really having that as on the format, and hopefully for any graphic designers out there, or any smaller artists, they are putting those notes on there, because those are wildly important. Where it was recorded at, when it was recorded, who did it, beyond just here's who your bass player is and your guitarist, right?
I had a conversation with Joe Hand, who's a buddy of mine, who's a record producer and an engineer here in Nashville. And he had been involved in one of Linkin Park's projects. And when it was all done, he didn't get any credits.
Yep.
Not only did he not get the gold album, he got no credits on the album. And you're right, that's literally becomes your bread and butter of, well, here's my list of accomplishments. And it's on the backside of a CD or a vinyl record.
And some of it's just education. I mean, most of the artists we deal with are, in their 20s and 30s. They've never had experience with vinyl before, and never really dealt with that format. So they didn't, thinking on that scale, that's not a screen, and it's not a CD. It's thinking of 13x13 and having all of that real estate, and then on having it, 2 to 4 sides, depending what you're doing.
Right.
That thought, unfortunately, right now is coming after everything is done, well beyond them, out of the studio. They've been on the road now, and that album's about to come out. And it's, somebody asks them, management says, "Well, what do you want on the jacket?" I don't know. What are we even talking about? So they're not familiar with the experience. So we help, just to try to, as we deal with artists, start thinking about it as early as you can, because it's a huge opportunity.
It becomes an education process on your end of things, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And we could be coming to, which could be exciting and interesting, inflection point for vinyl, much like we did, from the single idea, having singles and 45s from the jukebox days to long play and FM radio, is the artist actually thinking about the format as a vehicle to be a creative outlet. So vinyl disappeared and it was CDs, now it's coming back, and we're getting to the point, and you mentioned it's probably been, since the early 2000s that vinyl's been growing. We might be coming to a real energetic point where people thinking, oh, I really need to think about what the vinyl release looks like while I'm in the studio as I'm creating this, which we, the older collectors took, for granted. These are concepts, right? But that's new again.
And I think what's truly interesting is you now have literally a larger physical footprint to put artwork on, along with all those liner notes and those credits that hasn't been there in the past.
And connect with your fan base and tell them your story, right? I mean, beyond just your lyrics and your sound.
And, the one thing you'll see, kind of a physical representation of that, you'll see artists that the graphic designers made maybe the artwork for the first vinyl record, and the UPC is 4 inches by 3 inches, because they thought they blew it up the same as they had put it on a CD. And you'll see that it's the largest barcode you've ever seen. And you go, guys, it doesn't need to be that big. But yeah, all those little small education points are wildly important. And really, at the plant level, that's what our folks are doing. That's what our reps that are sitting behind computers are doing all day, is walking them through the process. What does this mean? What's a test press? Why do I need a test press? What am I listening for? And so there's all these education points, and there's ways to kind of streamline it or put certain procedures in place. But the reality is it's really just a one-on-one correspondence. And at the plant level, we love that, because it can be kind of a drag that on the 10 times a day you're telling kind of the same thing to different folks. But at the same time, it's pretty exciting to hear it when they get their aha moments. And that way, when they come back for their second title, third title, it's apparent to them what they need to do.
So you asked why VRMA.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example. So if we all want vinyl to continue, and grow, and obviously we do from a business side, but also from a fan side, is having all of the pressing plants talking to artists that way, so that this idea of the education actually permeates, and then the end consumer is getting a better product every time because it's more conceptualized, it's more tangible, and it really is the extension of the artist, not just a vehicle for commerce.
That brings up a perfect point of it's the creativity of the artist that goes beyond being content. Now, when I was a kid growing up in the 70s, we would go to the record store, and the record stores actually had little isolation booths that you could play the record and, listen to it before you purchased it. But the one thing that always drew me to an album was the artwork. I may not know who the band was. Who's this Santana or Abraxas, or who's this Led Zeppelin? But I love their artwork. So maybe that says something about the music, too.
Absolutely. If they were considering that, and that's part of their vision.
Yeah. And I think that's how today's artist needs to think. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And it not only it will help them and then turn into commerce because you'll sell more records, and then we'll keep the vinyl experience alive also. So
we're going to take another break, get a word in for a couple more of our sponsors. And when we come back, we're going to continue to have some more conversation with Alex and Dustin.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives. Whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhance Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
It may have been Tammy Wynette who sang Stand By Your Man, but it was actually Nancy Jones who stood by the legendary George Jones for more than 30 years and helped bring him to the light. Now in her new book, Playin' Possum, readers get an intimate look at the country music legend through the eyes of his wife and partner. Nancy knew George Jones better than anyone. The good and the bad, the horrendous and the hilarious. Married in 1983, George quit his wild and wicked ways for a while, but Nancy learned all too soon that there were demons holding a strong grip on the man she loved. People who knew the possum credit Nancy's tenacious love, faith, and encouragement for saving George's life and rebuilding his career. For the first time in Playin' Possum, Nancy Jones reveals the true insider perspective and little-known stories about the country music legend, his battles with cocaine, alcohol, abusive behavior, battles with himself, and against the demons that sought to control and destroy him. Read the compelling first-hand account from the woman who refused to give up on George Jones. Playin' Possum is available now. Order your copy today from nancyjonesbooks.com, Amazon, and more.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Back in the studio here in Nashville, Tennessee, Dustin Blocker and Alex Cushing are taking up seats here in the studio, and we're glad to have you guys. One of the things that we haven't really talked about, we've talked about the independent artists, label artists are taking vinyl records out on the road with them. Back in the 80s, 90s, very early 2000s, we had what was called a record store. Whether it was the Warehouse, or it was Tar Records, or Camelot, or Licorice Pizza, or Best Buy, Walmart, Circuit City, etc. Those, with the exception of the big box stores, all kind of went away. I mean, and some of them just in flaming crashes. Now we have the vinyl record resurgence, and not everybody goes to a show and buys a vinyl record. So now we're talking about the retail aspect of things. It's mom and pop these days, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and so there's a whole thing going on right now, and we actually had a press release this week talking about Luminate. So Luminate has changed their reporting, which is how Billboard gets its numbers. And really Record Store Day, ourselves and the Vinyl Alliance, which is a very similar organization over in the EU, have all kind of teamed up to say, hey, how do we look at this? Because it looks like there's going to be a large underreporting in the retail space kind of coming up. So they think it's about 5% of what is really being sold out in retail are going to start being reported as early as December, well, which is right now, 2023. So yeah, it's wildly important that the records get to the shop, and then it's also wildly important that they get reported the right way. So there's lots of things as an organization that we're looking at to make sure that those numbers are reported correctly, or at least request as many times as possible that it gets sorted out the right way. But those sales and how they get reported are wildly important for artists, how they book shows, how they get radio support, how they get tour support. So that's kind of a side note on what we're trying to champion right now.
I think we're in a situation, too, with acts that, sure, you have 100,000 followers or you have 10,000 likes on whatever social media page of the flavor of the moment is, but it really comes down to who are those fans that are buying product, who would buy tickets. And so what you're talking about, getting accurate reporting. Now, back in the 90s and 2000s, we had Nielsen BDS, which did a fairly good job of letting us know how many CDs and cassettes and vinyl we were selling. Is this something that is going to have a certain amount of accuracy, for lack of a better word, that will give everybody a really clear picture of what they're looking at in sales?
Yeah, so it's interesting on the stats. So we're actually in town for a meeting tomorrow with the VRMA, and a large portion of the meeting is going to be talking about stats, inaccuracy of stats. How do we get everybody on the same page? So you have the IFPI, which is getting their source from the record labels. They're getting their data from them. You have the RAA. You have Luminate, which I just said, and then another third party, which is called Future Source. If I, as a pressing plant operator or owner, were to look at those stats, I'm going to get wildly different numbers across those for global numbers and just here domestically in the States. So really, as an organization, that's a big piece of what we're trying to do, and really look at third party and say, how do us as the membership come together, pay to get accurate reporting, and have a third party vendor go out and actually get the right numbers so we can make actual business decisions. Because again, if I were to look at it, I could think, hey, I need to double up my lines for Q2. If I look at Future Source numbers, if I look at the RAA numbers, I said I need to shut down for 2 weeks in February. Which one is it? That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you mentioned the mom and pop. So everybody that's enjoying vinyl right now really has to tip their cap to these store owners that, in the face of everything that said don't open a record store, they did. Because it is only through the 2000s and everybody that kept the store open that vinyl exists today. And then the team that put Record Store Day together really is just it's an incredible thing that this now exists again, and vinyl's big again because of their hard work and dedication. But as things get bigger, other players come in, and you ask, are the numbers that we're going to see better or worse? Are we going to get clarity? With the changes they're talking about, it actually devalues and puts a challenge to small independent record stores to be part of this. And we can actually, why we're all concerned and why this is going to be a big conversation is actually we're going to lose visibility. And that's really concerning. And part of it is it puts tremendous pressure on these people that have been out there, these small independent shops, to agree to work with this larger source in a certain way. And there's all sorts of demands that, they either don't want to take on or can't physically take on. So we're going to lose the visibility of what's happening. And it's a major concern. And it really is, it's an unjust sort of twist, if you will, on people that have really propped up this industry and kept it going.
At the same time, where does the small independent boutique record label fit in all this? Because that's really the beginning. That's the source.
Yeah, I think that's a great call out, because it's gonna hurt them as well, because they're taking huge risks financially, and they're gonna put this product out there, and it could really be selling, and you could have a band that's trending, particularly market by market. When you're launching these, when bands are coming out, they have their circle of sphere of influence, if you will, and it's usually 5, 6, 8 cities within driving distance, and they could be having a great run and selling a lot of records and being quite popular there. But if those, 30 record stores aren't part of this group, those sales are never going to be represented.
Well, and let's go back to the 50s and 60s. That's how we did it back in those days.
Market by market.
Market by market.
Cleveland and Detroit and the Detroit Sound. And
you
New
had
York.
basically what we called a wagon wheel. You had a hub and you had spokes and, wherever you could drive in a day or two time. It's kind of ironically funny we're coming back to that these days, especially to break a new act.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time. The more digital everything gets, the more human everything gets too. So we all try to put in these systems in play, and your AI, whatever. But the truth is, everybody wants to try to figure out a new way, and there's really no new way to do it. The wagon wheel is still the best way all these years later. And that's funny because the vinyl record's still the best format all these years later, too.
Hey, if the model ain't broke, don't fix it, right?
Yes.
Well, I think everything, that we learn with digital is, the shiny new toy, and we all get enamored. And then in the end, it's just another tool in the toolbox. But the foundational idea of, creating, being with people, connecting with people is still the same thing.
Yeah.
So it's really... That's where that wagon wheel still is. You have to be out on there. You have to get people to come to the show, and you have to get them to want to be passionate enough to either open their wallet or, forget the money. The time is even more, precious for most people now is to show up.
Moving the artist from being more than a beer salesman to now being that artist that on stage that everybody wants to be a super fan of. That's what it comes down to. What else are we looking at these days?
It was, one interesting note I want to blow past that. It was what you said about the beer salesman that resonates with me. So as we kind of at the launch, we're talking about singing in a band. That was one of the jumping off points of the why to start the label, because as my band got more successful, I felt like all I was doing was keeping the bar open. And so my band, as we became a headliner, right, we were just getting pushed to play later and to finish later. And then we're playing for people that are so drunk that they can't find the merch table, much less buy anything. And I said, this is not sustainable, right? To start at 1 a.m. and finish at 1:58 because the bar closes at 2 a.m. so that we can sell more beer and shots and whatever. And then we spent more in bar tabs than we made from the door deal that we maybe had. So,
gee, that doesn't go on, does it?
No, of course it goes on. It happens every day. And it was funny because the more successful you get, if you could get out of the bars or even out of the music venues and get into the theaters, which started earlier and ended earlier, you felt like you were upgrading. And there's levels of that. And then it's amphitheater. I always wrote down little charts. Then amphitheater was the next one. And then you could get into, maybe get a little bit bigger from there. But
get into the arenas.
If possible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Or if you're in Texas, you play at the rodeos, right?
Which is big business.
Oh, yeah.
I did my fair share of those in Texas and Oklahoma and New Mexico. And I think that's an overlooked business in itself. And it's not always just country music.
That's exactly right.
Actually, in the Uber ride over here, we were talking to somebody that there's a whole bubble and universe of Texas music that you can make a great living just never leaving the state.
Yeah.
Or just the corners anyway.
What else do you guys have going on?
Yeah, so really, the big meeting tomorrow. So we have right at 50 members now for VRMA, which is awesome. A few of them are actually ex-US, so not in the US, and they're flying in for it, which is pretty crazy, this wild thing that we started a few years ago. Now we have people flying all from all over the country and then the world too. To kind of be a part of it, but that's really it. We're gonna link up right here in the Q4. We have 2 member meetings every year in the summer and then in the winter, and really get together and try to figure out what's going on currently. How do we get better at it? And what do we do differently to really help out the artist fan and just get better at this whole thing that's called vinyl?
Yeah, the thing I'm really excited about this meeting and why I'm just amped to be here is that there's probably 2 things that I want to really cover. There's, obviously a full day of agenda that's going to be talking all sorts of things, but education side of things, we spent a lot of time over the last year creating sort of documents, a lot of documents and a lot of roadmaps for the plants to create some standardization. And like we talked about, educating not only the artists, but our customers and the end consumer about, making sure or looking to see if your vinyl's even made in the United States and is that important. And, if you do that, you're really supporting a supply chain that is U.S. based and, not that the other things aren't valuable or not as good. It's just, that's a choice, a consumer choice, right?
And I want to bring something up that we haven't discussed yet, which is the record pressing plant. I hear so often that artists are having to send their masters over to Czechoslovakia or wherever it is to get their records pressed. How are the record plants here in the States? Are they staying ahead of the curve, or are they just sustaining at this point? Or?
Yeah. So what Alex was talking about. So we have a QC manual that's for the plants in our membership. Also a press operator's manual, and that's really to get all the plants here in the U.S. kind of on the same page.
Get them standardized.
Exactly. What does quality mean? What are you really letting out there into the world? What do customers need to listen for? But what do we as a plant and all of our all of our workers? What are they listening for? There's 55 plants in the U.S. They think there's going to be 200 plants in the globe. That's what's projected by the end of Q1. When we started this thing, it was 2014, and there was 15 plants in the U.S., and there was about 30 on the globe. So you can see it's a huge growth. And guess what? If you were brand new or just starting off, and this was us in our first couple of years, you're starting from square one on everything, not just customer relations, but how do you make a good record? That's awesome that you bought a new record press that you can push go. That does not make a great record. It is very craft oriented. We typically train our employees, what are we talking, typically 10 months minimum before they get to touch a press by themselves, all the way up to like 14 months. So it's a long gestation process to know how to actually make a good vinyl record. And if you're just throwing more record presses at the world and trying to make more units, you're just going to get a lot more crap out there in the world. So that's really the big piece of what VRMA is doing, is how do we get ahead of that on the quality side, so that when you spend your $30 at the independent record store, you throw it down on a turntable, does it actually play or does it skip pop and go to the next track?
Are the grooves deep enough, so to speak? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so to that point is the majority of what's happening in the U.S. are, mid-tier, what we call mid-size plants, being 2 to 6 or 8 or 10, 14 presses, versus some of the bigger ones that are outside the U.S. So, you're talking 50 to 100. So the point of choosing a record that was made and manufactured in the U.S., you're really supporting a smaller business that's using, because of the demands of the material and everything, it's almost completely made from beginning to end. Most of the parts are North American made and mostly U.S. made. So when you're making that, you're actually making a choice to support the U.S. market. That's just the reality of where it is. So part of that education is, does the consumer, are they interested in that? Is a big deal? It is to us. I'm not sure it is to them, but the question is they don't even know what they're talking. They don't even know what they're looking at yet. So if we can help them. And then the direct answer is there is more than enough supply chain and quality records being made in the U.S. that any artist really can get what they want done here in the U.S. You don't have to go somewhere else. So that's out of the direct. The other quick thing that I wanted to just talk about VRMA is we're talking a little bit of just looking at sustainability. So, this whole idea of vinyl and, people sort of cringe and, is that, hurting the earth and things like that is, listen, we're all hurting the earth, but there is no records floating around in the plastic island in the middle of the ocean. Actually, records are quite the opposite. These are not disposable. Their intent is not disposable. People keep them for years. They've been collectibles. So
pass them down generation to generation. Yeah.
That's sort of the first thing. And around education and sustainability is the vinyl records is quite different than all the other vinyls. It actually uses 50% less petroleum than every other vinyl product in the world. So in its sense, it's already less harmful, if
more
you will.
eco-friendly.
Well,
yeah.
And then part of the agenda for coming up is there are all sorts of things that plants can do. For us, our steam and our water cycles we use it retains 100%. We don't put anything out in the atmosphere. We recycle all our paper products, and then we can even look at, and we have implemented boxes that use post-consumable and even shrink wrap, and so there's lots of things that can happen that continue to lower our footprint and be a better choice on the eco side. And that's, again, about this meeting is some people don't know about it, some people do. What are the best practices? And that's what we're talking about.
Alex and Dustin, thank you so much for being on the show. A wealth of information.
Thank you.
Here's a shout out to our loyal listeners. Without you, we would not be one of the most listened to music industry interview podcasts in the world, including achieving #1 status in many countries, according to Apple Podcasts. If you enjoy our show, please check out our Facebook page at the Business Side of Music Podcast. don't forget to subscribe and definitely hit the like and the follow button. While you're at it, go to our page on YouTube and click on the Business Side of Music podcast to subscribe. You can check out our webcasts on there and get to see me and our guests, such as Dustin and Alex, here in the studio, along with Buddy the Music Dog, who seems to wander in and out on occasions. Last but not least, check out and follow us on Twitter at Biz Music Podcast. Until the next time, thanks for tuning in.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound designed by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.